Good evening, everyone. Just getting my screen sorted here, and we'll get started. Okay. Can you just let me know in the chat if you can hear me? I can see there's a number of you guys here. You're welcome to turn your videos on as well if you like. Unmute if you need to speak to me at any time. You'll all be automatically muted coming into the webinar, but if you want to interrupt me at any time, you can. Awesome. Thanks, JJ. You can hear me. Vicky, thank you. Okay. So I can't see anyone though. So feel free to turn your cameras on. Cool. I can see all your happy faces then. Okay, so tonight's webinar is about this myth that horses are unpredictable. And the reason I wanted to bring this to the conversation tonight is it's something that I don't agree with. I mean, I can see how that people can have that perception, and it's a really common thing that we often hear. But recently I saw a post on Facebook where a person was basically warning people to be really careful around horses and stallions in particular, because they can turn on you at any time, because that had been their experience. They'd had this accident, and from their perspective, the horse turned on them and it was completely out of the blue. And, you know, they were warning people about that, to always watch their back. And, you know, it's good to always be aware, but I just wanted to bring to the conversation that horses aren't actually unpredictable. They're giving us a lot of signs all the time, and it's up to us to be able to read those signs and know what to do about it. I don't believe that the things that happen out of the blue. And by the way, no shade to the person who wrote that post. It was a professional trainer. No shade to them or the people who were commenting and sharing stories around their own experiences, because that was their lived experience. Like, from their perspective, it was out of the blue. But I can guarantee that for 99% of those stories that I read in the comments where people were getting seriously hurt, I mean, there was even instances of people being killed, which is really, really sad. A lot of instances of people being picked up and thrown around by horses. But I can guarantee that if I was there watching what was happening, that would have been a predictable outcome based on the messages the horse was giving them. And you can have 1,000 near misses with a horse and not even notice, and then at occasion 1001 the horse escalates just a little bit, and that's where the accident happens. So I want to break that down a bit more for you through tonight. And the way I'm going to approach this is, I didn't have time to get a whole lot of video and things like that. I'm actually going to read out some of the things that some of people's real experiences, and we can break it down and also talk about you know, the information I can give you around what to look for and how to deal with this stuff. And also we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. And again, feel free to interrupt me or drop anything in the chat if you have questions along the way. So And my intention obviously is that you'll be able to, from now on or after this webinar, you're going to be able to go out to your horse or see horses interacting with people and be able to read what's really going on. Okay. So let me just read a couple of these examples out. And if there's anyone here who has had a negative experience with a horse where you've been, for example, attacked, or something has happened that's really seemed out of the blue, we can have a conversation around that too. Like, just drop it in the comments that you want to come up and we can chat about that. So, so these are real examples taken from the comments of the post that I was talking about. This person says, when I was a kid, there was a teen girl at a local riding school that had her breast torn off by a resident stallion. Someone replied to that and said, my trainer had the same happen to her. Another person said, I've been ran into, thrown through the air, ran over, and have permanent shoulder injuries by my paint gelding. Another person said, my dad's stallion, who was extremely well-mannered and quiet, randomly attacked me when I went into his stall to feed him one morning. He open-mouthed charged me, picked me up by the side of my stomach and slung me up in the air and back into the stall door with very minimal effort on his part. It was an eye-opener at just how quick and powerful these animals are. I'm very lucky I wasn't severely injured, but the bruising I had wrapped around my spine, from my spine to my belly button, and I couldn't bend over or really move without pain for a couple of months. And there was a reply to this one from a professional trainer who had a similar experience, and they said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're okay, but it's so crazy how studs can flip on you like that. Laughing face. And I think this is about the moment the penny dropped for me, and I was like, this has been normalized in the industry and it's not okay. Like, it's not normal. Again, not throwing shade on anyone, but these behaviors have been normalized and they don't have to be. Another one says, I knew an older lady who had an Arabian stallion. She owned him his entire life. He was born in her barn. He was 20 years old, never had shown a mean bone towards her, had some stud tendencies, but not aggressive. One day she opened the door to his run-in stall and he walked over calmly while she cleaned out the door track, and he all of a sudden spun towards her, grabbed her by the hip with his teeth and drug her 14 feet into his paddock where he tried to stomp her to death. Nothing changed, but it was dinner time. She took too long in his eyes. They are not something you can let your guard down around forever. Sorry, for sure, ever. And then they also said no one was allowed in with him for years after. And even then, 3 people around at all times if it had anything to do with him. His door was then opened from the outside of the paddock. It was a pretty serious thing. He never showed another sign of anything. So we'll come back to these. We'll come back to some of these later, because, like, after I've talked you through a few things, because I want you to be able to pick out what's going on. But yeah, it's pretty horrific, some of the stuff. This, I picked out, like, that's like 4, I think, out of the comments, and I don't know, there's probably hundreds of stories in there by now. But so if you have a pen and paper, that would be awesome, because you might want to write some things down as we're going. The first thing I want to stress to you, and it's really, really important to remember, is that horses can only see us through their own lens. So through the lens of herd dynamics and the horse's social structure. People often make the mistake of saying, like, my horse would never hurt me, they're such an angel, all of those things, even like my horse looks after me. It can appear that way, but the reality is your horse can only ever see you or interpret you through the lens of their, like, through their own brain. They can't think like us. They can't actually take responsibility for us, ever. They just don't, they don't have a human brain to be able to do that. So they're going to respond and interact with humans for the most part like they would respond and interact with another horse. So we need to read those interactions through the lens of the horse's brain. And we need to look at their behavior through the lens of, if this was horse to horse, what does this mean? So, and a really good question to ask to sort of determine that is, whenever you're interacting with horses on the ground, by the way, most of this webinar is going to be talking about horses on the ground, interacting with horses on the ground, because that is mostly where people really get hurt. I will talk about riding a bit later on as well, but for now we're just talking about on the ground. So a really good way to interpret horse behavior on the ground, or to start looking at, how do I predict their behavior? How do I predict if they're going to have safe behaviors towards me, or that they might potentially be dangerous at some time, or turn on you or flip that switch, is to ask the question, who is giving space to whom here? Who's giving way to who? Who is vacating space for who between you and the horse? That is a really, really simple judgment that you can make. If you see two horses in the paddock, for example, you can very easily see who gives way to who and who's willing to vacate space for the other one. And you know, just by watching those interactions, which horse, like if push comes to shove, you know which horse is going to get kicked out of the way or bitten or going to get, you know, a hurry up, and which one is going to be doing the hurrying up. Am I making sense so far? Yeah? Cool. Awesome. So you know how to read this in the paddock, right? You know how to read that between horses. So you can start to read it between yourself and your horse, or between, thanks, Misty, between even just watching other people around their horses. And this can happen in really, really subtle ways. And JJ and Catherine, who are on here, will know about that. I work together with them in some of my programs, where we've worked through a lot of this stuff, and how subtle it can be when your horse is, when you're giving space to your horse and you don't realize it. So it can be as simple as, for example, you might be brushing your horse, getting ready to saddle them, and they step towards you because they want to reach the hay bale, the hay bag over there, and you step back because they're stepping towards you. So that is you giving space, vacating space to the horse. And those tiny little interactions that we might do all day, every day, and not even realize, are telling your horse that they are basically in charge of you, because you're vacating space for them. That's how it works in a herd. If one horse is on a sweet patch of grass and the other horse decides he's coming to get that, one's going to vacate space for the other. So actually, while we're on the subject of grass, you'll see this play out really clearly at feed time, especially if you feed a number of horses together. You'll see who's vacating space for who over the feed. And it's something you can start to notice as well when you go to feed your horse. You might be bringing the bucket in, you might be giving it to them, but are they actually pressing on you when that's happening? Are they shoving their head in the bucket as it's going to the ground? Are they going to, like, if you were to hold onto the bucket and not let them get into it, would they actually start to push on you? So all of these things are going to give you an indication. And when we're looking at it through the horse's lens and we can see, okay, well, actually, I'm giving space to the horse, I'm vacating space to the horse in all these subtle little ways. Maybe when you're lunging, you might be stepping backwards when your horse cuts through the circle a little bit and you step back. That's a normal reaction. But if you are if you're vacating space for your horse in these subtle ways, then it makes sense. And it's actually really predictable that at some point, if push comes to shove, or if you ask them to do something that they don't want to do, that they're going to push hard on you, or they're going to maybe charge at you, or they're going to kick out double barrel. They're going to do things that are in alignment with you vacating space for them. And from their perspective, it's their job to do that, because that's where the herd hierarchy is between the two of you. So if we are consistently accidentally giving space to our horses and stepping back when they step forward, or letting them come through our personal space, we're telling them that this, our personal space and this patch of ground that we're standing on, is available space for them to pass through. So that's pretty dangerous. Like, it's okay while you're very aware of everything that's going on and nothing's out of the ordinary and you can, move out of their way. But it becomes very dangerous when they want to move you for some reason, or they spook, for example, and then they're going to use that available space. Like, that's really predictable. That's I've seen it happen over and over again. It's a really predictable response. They're going to use that available space. You are available space. And this is why, so with my clients, I usually, right from the start, we work on this, because it's often a big problem in between them and their horse. And in the very beginning, we establish that your personal space is your personal space, and it's not available space for your horse unless they're invited. And so what will happen then is, let's say you're leading your horse somewhere, and this actually happened with Catherine the other day. I hope you don't mind me mentioning Catherine, but she was, she has a new horse and she was leading him in the arena, and he was a little bit like looky. So his emotions were up a little bit. Something, I don't know what happened, maybe a palm leaf fell or something happened behind him. And just for context, so Catherine was leading behind him. That's the way we teach, and there's a good reason for that. He was leading about a horse length behind Catherine. Something fell behind him and he spooked at that, which is predictable because his emotions were high. It's predictable that he would spook if there was something out of the ordinary. But what was also predictable because of the work that we've done is that when he spooked, so he's behind her, he spooked out and around to the side. He didn't spook towards her. He didn't spook over the top of her. So when you set in place this idea that your personal space is your own and it's not available space for them, that is their default. When something happens suddenly, they don't spook through your space because it's already set in their mind that that's not available space for them unless they're invited. So let me. So if a person is available space for a horse, and the horse wants them to move for some reason and the person's not responding quickly enough, what are they going to do? Based on herd dynamics, based on horse herd behavior, what is a horse going to do if they're asking you to move, they want you to move, or they want to come through your space and you're in the way? Let me see the chat.
You've reinforced them taking your space.
Sorry, did you say it gets reinforced?
Yeah, they've achieved what they wanted, and so therefore it's normal then to them.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes, that might be normal for them, but if you're, yeah, I think Misty's picking up what I was getting at. So if they consider you available space and they're like, you're in my way and you don't get out of the way fast enough, Misty says, ears back, teeth bared, bite, or run through you or barge. Yeah, so they're going to basically do what they would do with another horse, which is knock you out of the way. Or maybe if they're like a stallion or a horse that's got a bit more emotion built up behind them, they might bite you, kick you, whatever. And that's a normal response because it's normal in their mind because you're available space. And they're higher than you in the herd hierarchy. And so actually, can you guys still hear me? It's raining pretty heavy right here at the moment. I can hardly hear myself. Yep. Okay. So the barging, the picking someone up and tossing them, the getting kicked, getting stomped on, all of those things, it's just an escalation. This is really, really important, and you can write this down if you want. The dangerous things that happen out of the blue are just an escalation of what is already happening. So it might seem really harmless to you that you're giving space to your horse, or that another example is they run up to you and they put their head in your chest. That's another dangerous example. Stepping backwards when you're lunging and they come through in front of you. letting them come up to you when you're giving them feed, all these sort of things, they might seem harmless because you're not getting hurt yet. But the dangerous behaviours are just an escalation of those little things that are happening all the time. And that's why it's so predictable. That's why I say these things don't happen out of the blue. They're just an escalation. And then if we look at stallions, for example, they're going to have some different behaviors because they're stallions. They're designed to fight. They're designed to come at you with the front end more so than kicking. Like a mare tends to be more defensive and kick with the back end, just generally speaking. But stallions are they're like, when they move from the harmless behaviors into the dangerous ones, those dangerous ones are like fight to the death type behaviors. And this is why people get seriously injured by stallions, probably more so than other horses. They're designed to fight. So yeah, so, and a lot of times people will say, okay, just geld them. Like if they do anything they shouldn't do, just geld them. And a lot of times that does solve the problem of the dangerous behavior. But now they're just a gelding showing different behaviors, but it still could become dangerous when push comes to shove. But they might not be charging at you anymore. So the hormones just amplify the herd dynamics that are already there between you and the horse. That's what you're seeing with stallions. Yeah, and stallions, like, they're naturally seeking to be dominant over everyone, including you. So you do have to be firm with them. I mean, you have to be firm with all horses, but yeah, stallions are, I would say, just high risk for that reason. They're going to want to be dominant. However, having said that, I've worked with a number of stallions. I've worked with unhandled stallions, or like a 4-year-old unbroken, unhandled stallion a few years ago. I've got a client at the moment who has 2 stallions. They're both about 3 years old, so they're both young and cocky and all of those things, got a lot of hormones going around. There's fillies right beside them. There's mare and foal right beside them. And actually, this is a good thing to talk about, because those 2 stallions were approached slightly differently in their training, and there's different results. So the first one, the client got the stallion, and pretty much as soon as he came, I took him through the Partnership Reboot program, which is where we establish all these ground rules with the horse, and we make sure that they are yielding space to you and not the other way around. And there's a series of like 6 steps or 6 modules that we do within that. So we did that pretty much straight away when he came, and he had a few little, objections to start with, and after that, he was great. The second stallion, when he arrived, so they were both really quiet guys. But the second one, when he arrived, they didn't do the program like we'd done with the first one. They didn't opt to do that. And I had so I was working with these clients sort of over a period of time. So I did do some handling periodically with this stallion where I was going through those steps, but it wasn't like consistent. And he was getting a lot of other handling between. So the thing with him, when you were handling him, was that he definitely had objections. And he was definitely trying to move you and use you as available space. And if you asked him to give you space and you insisted on that, then he would double barrel at you. And he was a really good example of a really quiet horse that the seller, like, she jumped on him bareback with no bridle, no saddle on, in the paddock with mares right beside him when the client went to buy him. And I saw that with my own eyes, like, really quiet. But as soon as the person then would establish a boundary with him and say, no, I'm actually going to cause you to vacate space for me, he was like, no, we're going to fight. So he didn't feel, even though he seemed quiet, he didn't feel very safe to be around. And you probably know for yourself, sometimes you just get like a feeling something's a little bit off. And that's usually when they're pushing on you, or you're seeing some little signs, some little expressions that tell you that your like subconscious is going, hey, this is dangerous right now. And so that's how he felt to be around. And he was a horse that I would say, don't turn your back on him. Make sure that, like, be really careful with him. Make sure that you're continually having him back off of you. Be careful when you go into his stall with feed, because he, like, in his opinion, he's going to move you. He's in charge. And so therefore, it's normal behavior if he's going to escalate that at some point. Yeah, Vicky, I see in the comments. Same with ridden horses. When they get to do what they want, then they're happy, yeah. And when you nicely insist, then the bad behavior starts until you work through it. Yeah. So many ridden horses are just like doing what they want, and it all seems to be going great until you ask them to do something different. Totally. So this second stallion, he was one that you had to watch a little bit. Like, I didn't trust him that he wouldn't kick. If it was just, and then one day I was at the client's place and I was handling this stallion, and I was like, he's changed. He is calm. He's like a lamb to handle. He was like placid, willing, connected to me, like not distracted. The things that we had with the first stallion. And I was like, that's really odd. I think somebody else has been handling this horse in the between times, like between the times that I was there. Somebody's changed here. Like, what's going on? I didn't say anything, but then the owner said to me a little bit later, they said, by the way, I'm not letting that horse get away with anything. And I'm making him stand back when I come in to feed, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and he doesn't get away with anything. And I was like, now you have a safe horse. Now you have a horse, a stallion, a 3-year-old stallion with mares and fillies in the vicinity who you can feel safe around. You can go into his stall and you can turn your back while you're doing things, because he is showing you all these green flags. He is yielding space. He's not pushing on you. He's accepted that humans are not available space that he can push through. And he's happy just to stand back and adjust and move around us. So is it then all humans, or just humans who enforce their space? Yeah, it depends. It's definitely humans who enforce their space, but if you are consistent with a horse and if you are consistent enough and you're the person who's mostly spending time with that horse, then they tend to relate to other humans in the same way as well. But other humans can be messing it up. Like, you're right. It can be like the pecking order in herds where they'll respect you, but the next person they'll push on. But the more consistent exposure that they have to one person who's doing the right thing, the better they'll be. $1 million question. How do you get them to yield when they are used to barging into you? Yes, Misty, we will move on to that right now. So the way I do it, basically, you need to move them out of your space, but do it in a way that they can't kick you, because they're going to try. They're going to try. And with my program, so I use a flag. Most horses will respond well to a flag because it's a flappy object, and especially if you can use it at the front of the horse, like near their eye, if they're trying to come at you from the front, and it works well from behind as well because it's so visual. It's easy for them to see. However, let me back up a bit. It's usually quite easy for me to come to someone's place and work with their horse and get it sorted fairly quickly without anything dangerous happening. Now, the horse does try to kick out, but I have plenty of distance. I have a long lead rope. I'm skilled with handling the flag, etc., and so I can get it done without any issue. But it's a lot harder for the person who already owns the horse, who handles them every day, and they already have this hierarchy with the horse. And if the horse is above them, and then you're saying, no, I'm gonna tell you what to do, that's when the fight happens. And because they have so much history with you, they're probably gonna be a lot more resistant to changing their mind about it. Whereas when I come in as a new person and the horse is like sizing me up, the horse is working out, okay, who's in charge here, or who's going to push who around, it's fairly easy for me to come in from the outset and go, well, I'm going to move you. And they'll be like, I don't like that, but okay. So to answer your question, the way I would get them moving for you in the beginning is to have a fence between you and the horse that protects your space. So you can stand your ground. You can literally stand your ground and keep sending them away, and they can try to kick or they can try to come at the fence, but they can't actually make you move. Vicky says, I think with the experience, you see the subtle changes in the horse as they're preparing to do what they are deciding to do. The inexperienced person is unaware of these expressions of face, body changes in body. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the inexperienced person is going to be a lot slower to see. What I mostly find with inexperienced people, or actually not even inexperienced people, they will let the horse get so much closer to them before they enforce their personal space. Like for me, if I don't know a horse and I haven't already established that they give way to me, I'm not letting them within 1 horse length. It's like, that's the line. That's where the electric fence is, the imaginary electric fence, and I'm going to send them off. Whereas a lot of people will let the horse come in until they're almost running over them, and then they will try to enforce personal space. But the problem is the horse is already well within striking distance, kicking distance, charging distance. Like, the person is already feeling like they've got to back up. They're already compromised. So more space is better. If there's a horse that is like showing particularly sort of dangerous signs, or like they want to be aggressive, then my personal space is like 2 or 3 horse lengths, not 1 horse length. It's 2 or 3, because that gives you time as they're approaching and you're saying, no, you've got to move, you've got to clear space for me. It gives you time to escalate if you need to. It gives you time to adjust your tool, or maybe put yourself in a better position. Maybe put yourself outside the fence if you need to, and then continue to enforce your space from there. But definitely more space is better in the beginning. Don't be doing it at close range. The other thing is to, if you are trying to enforce your personal space with the horse, say, 1 meter away from you, or at a distance like from where you would normally lead beside your horse, the penny's not going to drop for them, because they're still in your personal space. It's not going to make sense to them that, oh, you've enforced a boundary here, because like they're still in your space. You haven't made them go outside of your space. So they're still going to push on you from there. So any other questions at the moment? So what can you do, to add to what we just talked about, Misty, what can you do to start to change things and even recognize what's going on? By the way, I do want to do like a follow-up. I don't know if I mentioned it before. I want to do like a follow-up to this call where we've got video that we can all look at while we're talking through, and like identify some of those expressions and things that are happening that people misread. But the main one to remember is like, whose feet are moving for who. That's going to tell you pretty clearly whether you're at risk of getting hurt by your horse or not. So next steps. So hang on, let me answer this one. Is it ever okay to let a horse put their head in a feed bucket before you've placed it on the ground and walked away? Is that basically allowing them to invade your space? Yeah, Beck, it is. It is allowing them to invade your space. The only time, I don't really ever do that, but the only time that I might do that is if I've had like a long relationship with a horse where they know the drill, they're never challenging me, they're always giving way to my space, and I'm literally inviting them to come and put their head in their bucket. They're not demanding it. They're not trying to get there before I ask them, but I invite them to put their head in the bucket and they can have the bucket. And that's like similar to two horses sharing feed, I guess. But that rarely just ever happens in a herd. It happens when the horses have established really clearly who's in charge. And then the lower horse might approach and ask permission if they can come in, and the other horse will allow them to. But I would not recommend ever doing that until like there's just zero issues. Do you start with establishing boundaries by lunging them around you and asking them to move around you? Yeah, I probably prefer to start with the horse loose in the paddock. Where you're just asking them to move off. Or maybe you come up to the gate, like often horses want to crowd the gate. Maybe you come up to the gate and you send them off from there before you come into the paddock. The reason I like to do it loose in the beginning is it's in their normal like herd environment. It makes a lot of sense to them because they don't have a halter pulling on them. They don't have like other signals happening at the same time. You can be really clear about, I'm approaching you and I'm asking you to move away. That's it. That's the only thing. And then once they get that, then you can bring that into the lunging. You can bring that into other things as well. Yeah. So I do shoo them away with the flag. And for you guys who are here on the call, I'm actually going to send you a video of this so that you can do the first step at home and you have a guide of how to do it. Yeah, so you shoo them away with your flag, and when they turn around and come back, you just shoo them away again until they're willing to stand a good distance away, like 1 to 2 horse lengths, and wait there. And that's at the point that they've accepted your personal space boundary. I was told that stallions sense women's hormones and can be aggressive. Do you know if this is true? Oh, I think there's more going on. I think, okay, 2 things. I think they can sense, like, I think you probably smell different at different times of the month. I think they would smell that, but whether they interpret it as any different, I don't think so. What I think they interpret differently is that if you're hormonal and not feeling the same way that you normally feel, your body language is going to be different. You might appear weaker. You might appear more subdued, or, and just thinking back to like stallions in a herd situation, if one stallion is let's say one stallion's in charge of the herd and the other one wants to come and challenge him, he's going to pick a time when he looks weak. And I see this in horse herds as well, just in my herd at home and stuff like that. When one horse starts to get a little bit like complacent, or they're not feeling so good, that's when there's changes in the dynamics. That's when someone's, whoa, sorry, I think a branch just landed on my roof. Scared me. Yeah, that's when you will see switches happening in the herd. So as far as the stallions, like I said earlier, they're wired to be dominant. So if you're looking a little bit off today, they're probably going to challenge you. if you haven't set really strong boundaries beforehand. With feeding, do you shoo them away until they stand back and then you put the bucket down and walk away? 100%. You've nailed it, Misty. The feed is yours. The feed is yours until you leave the area. You can write that one down too. It's my feed until I leave. You're all over it, Misty. Yep, Vicky. Yeah, cool. Most of these like myths or old wives' tales that we have around horses, usually if you think of it from the lens of herd dynamics, there's usually an explanation for it. Real life be lifing for Misty. You'll get it. Once I send you guys a video that'll help you out a lot. Yes, Vicky, I agree. Women get blamed for everything. Yeah, so I was going to say, like, next steps. I mentioned earlier that often, did I mention that? Maybe I didn't. But often you can be like giving way to your horse and you don't even realize you're doing it. It's just automatic. So what I would suggest you do is next time you go to feed your horse or you're doing some ground handling, maybe lunging or whatever you normally do with your horse, just set up your camera or your phone to film you for say 5 or 10 minutes and come back and watch it. And don't be looking at how shiny your horse is or that his white socks are too dirty or any of those things. Look at, even if you just look at the bottom half of the screen and watch whose feet are moving out, like who's moving for who. And is it what you thought? Or are you actually giving way to your horse some of the time? The cat's trained you. Yeah. Humans are pretty easy to train. So set up your phone, watch that back. Don't bash yourself if you realize you're doing all these things that you didn't know that you were doing. And then you can start to enforce some boundaries. Start on the other side of, like, let's say you notice this is happening in the lunging and your horse is wanting to charge at you, for example, and you feel like, okay, I don't really know how to stand my ground. I don't really know how to get him out there because he's already figured out he can push you. Then don't try to do it in the lunging. Get yourself in a safe spot where he can't push on you. So this might be, for example, you might put him, well, we mentioned before about coming to the paddock and sending them away from the gate, or you might put him in, say, a small yard, and let's say you've got some hay in the yard or something and he's going eating the hay, you might just come along the fence near where the hay is and send them away. Make him go stand on the other side of the yard and then leave. How do you invite them in? Okay. Initially, I won't invite them in for a bit. So until this is working really, really well, I won't invite them in at all because I don't want to like muddy the waters. But what you do is you go to them. So you go and make contact with them. And this happens in horse herds as well, where the dominant horse is allowed to go up to another horse and groom with them. They're allowed to go and ask to groom with them. But it's not supposed to happen the other way. So your horse doesn't get to just come and demand to groom with you. They have to respect that you've set a personal space boundary and wait over the other side of the yard or wherever you've told them to wait. And when they can settle there and be content in their own space, then you go and groom with them or go catch them or whatever it is that you want to do. And there might be a period of time there where it seems like you're going backwards because now they don't want to be caught or now whatever it is. But you've got to go through that process to fix the herd dynamics between the two of you. And then you can actually build a really strong partnership, a much better partnership than before, from a place of safety. And once they understand the personal space, and that's all good, and they're consistent with that, you can invite them. And how? I generally just like catch their eye and then step backwards. So you're drawing them. You're drawing them with your body, but they don't get to close the gap on you unless you are like inviting them. Maybe you put your hand out or something to invite them. And your body language changes when you're inviting them. Naturally, like I don't have to tell you how to do that. Your body language will just soften. Is that making sense, Misty? Okay, cool. Yeah, so my flags, I buy them from Kaz's Flags. You can find her on Facebook. And I buy them from her and I sell them as well to my clients. But you can order your own from her. I need to do another order myself. But they're really good quality. So that's who I would recommend. Kaz's Flags and Tail Bags. K-A-Z. I'll just put it in here. Or if you message me afterwards, I can send you a link for that. By the way, if anyone is on here or watching the replay that wants to get the instructional video for the first step and wants to be involved in a follow-up chat, make sure you message me on Facebook or wherever you come across me to begin with, and drop me your email address because that's how I'm going to keep in contact with people. So I want to move on quickly. Actually, before we do that, let's just go back to one of these examples that I read out earlier. And I want to see if you can, oh, cool. Thanks, Vicky. Vicky, can you send that to me in a message on Facebook? Because I think I'm going to lose the chat as soon as we stop recording. So let's go back to one of the examples. And let's see if you can read between the lines and figure out what's probably really going on between this horse and the owner. So there was an older lady who had an Arabian stallion. She owned him his entire life. He was born in her barn, 20 years old, had never shown a mean bone towards her, had some stud tendencies, but not aggressive. One day she opened the door to his run-in stall and he walked over calmly while she cleaned out the door track and he all of a sudden spun towards her, grabbed her by the hip with his teeth, and dragged her 14 feet into his paddock, where he tried to stomp her to death. Nothing changed, but it was dinner time. She took too long in his eyes. What's going on there? What's really going on there? Yep, he was going into her space. She was definitely missing the signals, probably for 20 years. So from what I understand, he's in a stable, and then what does it say? Run and stall. So there's like yeah, Misty, definitely. Like there's an indoor and an outdoor, like a day yard, I assume, outside the stall. She's opened the stall door. She's cleaning it out. He's just like, you're in my way. Yeah, definitely the dinner time thing, I think, was a big factor as well. Stress, expecting. Like maybe he was giving her the normal signals that he normally does, that like, bring my dinner, and she's ignoring it because she's cleaning. And again, the stress of or the expectation of dinner that's not coming fast enough is going to escalate his emotions, which is going to escalate the behavior. So I really believe the behavior was there all along. She opens the stall door and he just goes out and he pushes into her space or whatever. But with the extra stress, he's doing something a lot more dangerous. Definitely, Beck, people become complacent and they don't want to believe that their horse could hurt them. That's right. They don't want to believe that. They don't want to think that of their beautiful horse. But the horse sees you like another horse. Yeah. Where's my food? Get out of the way. So he's pretty much done what a stallion would do to another horse which is in the way. It's like probably grab them on the wither. He's moving out the stall to get to the grass. He happens to still have hold of the horse in his like the horse's wither. And because it's fallen on the ground in front of him, he tramples over it. I don't think he actually tried to stomp her to death. If he tried to stomp her to death, he would have stomped her to death. I would say he's just done what he would do with any other horse that's in the way. She's happened to fall underneath him. He's run over the top of her because she's available space. Yeah, they assume they're like people and think like people. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So, and this is interesting then, the person then said after that, his door was then opened from the outside of his paddock and they never had another problem. Because no one was standing in the doorway and therefore everyone's just staying out of his way. Why would he run over anyone? Everyone's watching their back, making sure they stay out of his way. Should be the other way around. The horse should be watching your back. I actually have an exercise in my partnership reboot program where it's called Watch My Back, and they'll be watching your back for you. You train them all. Absolutely. Had it figured out. With the riding part, so has anyone had an experience where you would say something just happened out of the blue or you couldn't have predicted when you were riding? Feel free to come up if you want. But with riding, obviously the personal space thing is, well, we're on the back, so, but there's the same element applies where are they willing to yield space to us? So if you put your leg on, are they willing to yield off of it? If you pick up a little pressure on the reins, are they willing to give to that pressure? It's the same concept as being willing to give space to you on the ground, the exact same concept. When there's some sort of pressure applied, will they give way to that pressure? And this is why when we do that groundwork or the partnership reboot program, for example, the riding improves automatically. Do you have a story, Misty? Is that what the yes is about? You can unmute yourself.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. I can't type that fast. Yeah, no, I was just sort of getting at, yeah, definitely they get an unpredictable when you're riding them. I find that it's almost a confidence thing in me. Like I'm not confident, and then I feel like they feed off that, and then they're not confident, and then it just all goes horribly wrong from there.
Mm-hmm. And so what's the action? What's the thing that happens
I don't
that
know.
you would
I
say
think,
is
yeah, I think
the
it's like,
spook? Oh,
yeah,
no,
like they spook, or they're tense because we're, walking through a headland in a cane paddock, and there's wind, and the trees moving, and I suppose I'm sort of on alert because I know that they're green, and then I think I'm on alert that makes them on alert, and then yeah, and I feel like it's that thing, like they're used to dominating me. I'm the bottom of the pecking order because they're always moving on top of me. So then they're not looking to me for leadership. They're going, oh shit, she's afraid. I need to be afraid too.
yeah. And so when you're riding them and the wind's blowing and all that stuff's happening, what are you feeling from the horse, or how are they responding? So if you think about like, do they respond well to being asked to stop? Do they respond well to being asked to turn? Or is there like this feeling of tension through their body?
There's definitely tension. They might stop briefly, but then they'll sort of jig and um, keep going, like keep wanting to walk, or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very similar concept to being on the ground when the horse continues to push. It's like, yeah, I feel you asking me to stop. I feel you trying to direct me, but I'm going to do what I think I need to do. And so that then shows you that, okay, if something scares this horse, if something unexpected happens or that this horse doesn't like, then the predictable response is that they're going to rush through your reins, or they're going to take action that suits them without considering your input.
100%.
And yeah, and also the other thing is like, where's their emotions at? Because that's the other measure of how to predict what the behavior is going to be, whether it's going to be safe behavior or unsafe behavior. Is like, are their emotions at a really nice calm level, or are their emotions, even if they're standing completely still, are their emotions at a high level? And so, it's an entirely different conversation then to talk about what to do about that and how to get your horse calm and predictable and listening to you and checking in with you for leadership, etc. But it's just worth noting that those two things, the willingness to yield their body when you ask them to yield their body, and their underlying emotions, is going to allow you to predict their behavior. Can horses have bad days and therefore some days will be better rides than others? Yeah, definitely. Like they have, yeah, like back to the emotions thing, they have emotions, hormones, if there are any changes in their herd, if it's been windy and there's like windy overnight, for example, or stormy and they haven't slept and their brain hasn't rested, or if dogs have been chasing them through the night. Like, there are so many factors that can alter the emotions that they show up with. And if they've got heightened emotions, they're going to tend to push on you more. However, if you have really clear boundaries and you've established that, they might not push on you. And also, like, it just takes so much of that risk out. But you want to make good decisions based on where their emotions are at. Like, don't just assume. Like, again, being able to read their emotions and read how they're responding to your pressure and your guidance is you're going to be able to predict whether you're going to have a good ride or not. How do you get them calm? Okay. You do the work on the ground. So the personal space stuff is really big. That also helps with separation anxiety, which is another whole conversation. You get their focus. You insist on having their focus and keeping their focus. We've been working through this with Catherine as well, with her horse, and they've just turned a corner on that, which is really cool. And when you have those things working together and you are consistent in your leadership, they recognize that you become like a safe point of reference for them. And they tend to trust your guidance on things rather than feeling like they have to go and react themselves. Yeah. And so, Misty, like, separation anxiety, it's another thing that is totally normal for horses because they're designed to run in a herd and that's their safety network. So again, we have to see things through their eyes and adjust our training, adjust how we interact with them so that it works and it makes sense for them. And helping the horse shape themselves to aid in relaxation. Yeah, definitely, Vicky. Yep. Yep. You can do this on the ground and in the saddle. You can position the horse's body, like even just getting their spine in alignment or helping them step under with their crossover with their hindquarter, or make physical moves that a horse would do when they're relaxed, and you break the pattern of like the bracing and the tension. And just by putting their body, repeatedly asking them to move their body in that way, they can really start to breathe and relax and calm. Is that what you're getting at there, Vicky? I think that's along the lines of what you're saying. And bringing their mind back to you. Yes, like the yielding to you. Yep, definitely. Oftentimes, if you can just help them bring their mind back to their own body and let go of whatever they're worried about, that can help a lot. But you might have to do it lots of times over. Flexing in circles, yeah, that's a good start. Yep. Having a bend in the body rather than a rigid, and changing directions often so that they don't get like, they're not just going on autopilot. It's really about bringing the mind back to you, adjusting the body so that the mind comes back. So it's no good to be doing the flexing and the bending and the circles if their brain is still elsewhere. Cool. So, I'll let you guys go soon because time's getting on. So, I have mentioned a few times the Partnership Reboot program. That's a program that I do in the Mackay area, but it's also coming online as well. So, again, if you're on my email list, you're going to get some updates about that. There'll be some really good deals in the pre-sale before it goes online, and you still can get support, you know, one-on-one support with that as well, if you're interested in that. And we cover in that program, like we cover a lot of this stuff that just takes away the risk on the ground and in the saddle. The Partnership Reboot program is a ground program, but it also carries over to your saddle work. So that might be something that you're interested in. I still do have a couple of spaces to work with me long-term as well in the Legacy program, where I, you know, support you long-term with all the horses that you have. And basically I'm your mentor for a period of, you know, several months. So that's an option. But otherwise, keep an eye open for the video that will come in a few days' time. It won't be like tomorrow, but it'll be coming in a few days' time to help you get the first step sorted with setting personal space and getting those herd dynamics right between you and your horse. And I think that's all I wanted to share with you today. So Beck, if you're in Bundaberg, yeah, it does work really well. So you're doing riding lessons with an instructor? I think that's what you're saying, in Bundaberg. I often work with people who, work with people who are getting lessons with other people or who are pursuing other disciplines and things, and it does work really well together because we're covering probably different topics that your instructor might not be teaching, like it's not their focus. And I'm really open and happy for people to work with other instructors while they're working with me. I don't have an issue with that. So any other final questions? Thank you, JJ. Yeah. And that's the reason I created a long-term mentorship program, is because while we can get a lot done in a short period of time, it's the long term where things really get cemented, and not just for your horse, but that's where you really grow as a horse person. It's like more you change, and your even how you feel about yourself changes. Mindfulness and consistency. Totally. Thank you, Catherine. Catherine's in the Legacy program as well. Yeah, Vicky, definitely making the sport a lot safer. And that's really the reason I wanted to put this on today. And I want to keep spreading that message, because there's just so many people getting hurt that it just doesn't need to happen. And it's life-changing injuries. It's not just like, oh, I broke my arm. It's like, yeah, a lot worse often. All right. Thank you very much for coming. I'll start planning a follow-up for this. And make sure you message me if I don't already have you on my email list. If in doubt, just message me anyway. Thanks for your interactions. It's really good to hear, you know, where you guys are at and your feedback as well. Yeah, I should hold some more of these. Thanks, Misty. All right, have an awesome night, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See ya.